Okay, Caleb, the people have been waiting.
Yeah.
They've been waiting. They said, "Where is 303 Hoops?"
Yeah.
Well, we got our bracket picks for you right now. And we're going to start in the East region. I'm going to go pretty quick. I
Dude,
got
why is yours
Duke.
in dark mode? I wish mine was in dark mode. What the heck?
I know, right? It's pretty cool, right?
That's pretty cool.
We're playing chess. It's like I'm the black pieces,
The white
which means
pieces.
you should get to go first, but we're overruling you.
Ironically, that's the inverse of what we look like, but it's all
True.
right.
True.
Yeah, yes. Go ahead, my friend. Go ahead.
It's more for my eyes than anything else. Um, it's like better for your vision or whatever it is.
Right. That's what they say. That's what they say.
Okay, here we go. I got Duke, Ohio State to start the tournament, maybe the best game of the first round.
I agree.
St. John's, Kansas. I had to pick South Florida because without Mikael Brown, Louisville has not been the same team when he missed that time in December, January. So I think this is upset territory. Michigan State, I got UCLA beating UCF and UConn beating Furman. And then things get dicey for me in the East. I have
Yes.
UCLA, the hottest team in basketball, taking down UConn in the second round. I don't trust UConn's guards when it comes down to it. I do trust Donovan Dent. I think that he can have the sort of run that he wanted to have with that New Mexico team that didn't necessarily work out.
Yes.
Um,
With Patino. Yes, yes, yes.
yeah, Michigan State over South Florida, they're just
Mm.
too good. St. John's over Kansas. Kansas might be the worst four seed. St. John's pretty good,
I think they got
obviously.
slided. I think they got slided as a five.
Yeah, I think so too. But yeah, I think that Pitino is a third year coach. Every time he's had a third year, it's been his best year. So at every school he's been to. So
Right.
I got to give him some run here. Duke takes down Ohio State and then St. John's. That'll be a tough one, but I think Duke is still one of the best teams in basketball. Michigan State advances and Duke takes down Michigan State. Um, Out here in the West, I have obviously Arizona. I have Utah State taking down the Big East team that's a bit weaker this year, and Utah State ran their conference.
Right.
Wisconsin takes down High Point, although that could be closer to a coin flip than most people think.
Yeah.
Arkansas takes Hawaii. Texas upsets BYU. I like the momentum that they have right now.
A
I
good
think winning
win.
a game in that fashion,
Yeah.
and bringing that underdog mentality. I haven't seen the cohesion from BYU's group that I would have hoped in the regular season, and they lost a lot of close games because of that.
Hmm.
Gonzaga wins the first round against Kennesaw State. I have Missouri as underrated SEC team for me. I know Miami's good, but they also have a first year coach. I like Missouri. Purdue takes down Queens and then takes down Missouri. Gonzaga advances to the Sweet 16 once again. This might be the best second round game anyone could ever script
I know.
with two of the most fiery offenses
I was
and
about to
best
say
players.
fast-paced game.
Yeah,
Fast-paced
but I got
game.
to go with Arkansas. I think that
Hmm.
Acuff is the best player in college basketball.
Hmm.
Arizona takes down Utah State and then loses to Arkansas in the Sweet 16. I think again, it comes down to guard play for me in this game. And I think that, Coach Cal can really, this is his moment to advance further than most people would have imagined. I think Arizona is consistently amazing, really, really great as a team, but I don't trust their guards as much as I trust Arkansas's. And I think by that point, Utah State will have worn them down a little bit. And I don't know, maybe a fantastic finish against Wisconsin keeps that momentum going for Arkansas going into the second weekend.
Yes.
But with a weekend off, yeah, I think maybe Calipari just draws a better scheme and they end up winning that game. Then I
Mhm.
have Purdue advancing to the Final Four. Um, in the South, I have Florida. I have Iowa over Clemson, Vanderbilt, Nebraska squeaks by Troy. VCU takes down UNC. I think that's one of the best mid-majors that we have in this tournament.
Yep.
So I got to take them there for against the team that's been up and down and doesn't have Caleb Wilson. Illinois over Penn, A&M over St. Mary's. I do think the West Coast Conference is exciting this year, but St. Mary's had a bit of a down year compared to where they
This is
need to
gonna
be.
be that'll be an interesting game though. Very
Yeah, it will
different play
be.
styles. Texas
That's
A&M is pretty fast. St. Mary's is pretty slow, especially
yeah.
comparatively previous years. So seeing how they play each other will be interesting. So I know that teams in tournament time usually have trouble when other teams are a little slow. Like fast-paced teams have trouble with slow-paced teams, especially when those teams are efficient on the offensive side of the ball. So it'll be interesting to see that matchup.
It will be, and it's kind of hard to predict how good that conference is going to do in the tournament. Hinting at Santa Clara as well. Then I have Houston winning, Illinois getting past VCU. I have Vanderbilt over Nebraska, Florida over Iowa. Here's another big one. I have two one seeds going down in the Sweet 16. I
Mm,
think Vanderbilt is a really incredible team. They had their mojo at the beginning with they won like the first what 12, 13 games and then
yeah,
had a couple tough games in the SEC tournament or the SEC play, but then played great in the tournament, beat Florida, and I think that they will keep that momentum going. And I don't think Florida has the same conviction on the defensive end that they did last year. I think they lost a lot of key players, and I don't think that they have the guy that can make the shot in the late game like they did last season with Walter Clayton.
yeah, Walter Clayton.
I don't trust them if it comes down to the wire. And then
No,
I have Houston advancing. They'll be playing that game in Houston. That's a big advantage for them.
huge.
Sweet 16 and Elite Eight.
Yeah,
Otherwise, I'd probably take Illinois in that game. And then the Midwest, obviously, good job, Howard, getting their win yesterday. It
yep,
was a fun game to watch, but Michigan will take them down. I have Georgia over St. Louis. I don't think
same.
the Billikens are looking as great as some people think in the A10. I'd rather have VCU in the A10. I think VCU is a better team. Even though they're two seeds lower. Texas Tech over Akron. I have Hofstra over Bama. I
That's
think
oof.
the arrest of Aiden
Taking
Holloway
it all away.
has to do with that. I actually think Aiden Holloway played a bigger piece to that team than most people give him credit for. Um, and I think Hofstra has a lot of defensive potential. They have a 7-foot center. Alabama's a little undersized. And I do think they have the shot makers and the best guard duo in mid-major.
Right.
So I will take that to keep up with Alabama's speed, and I don't think Alabama's going to make the shots that they need to make, which obviously they rely a lot on. I have Tennessee winning against, I'm going to predict SMU, but if it's Ohio, they'll win by even more. Virginia over Wright State, Kentucky over Santa Clara, although I thought a lot about that one. Kentucky has just not done well in the tournament in recent years. I think, though, Mark Pope will get this one. And then Iowa State will take down Kentucky in the second round. Tennessee upsets Virginia. I know this is a bit of a crazy one because Tennessee lost a lot of games. I think they lost 11 games.
Yeah,
Um, but they had one of the hardest schedules.
they did.
And I think on Ken Palm, their luck is really bad, and also their strength of schedule is really, really good. Um, they always like a challenge. Um, and I think that the players on their team, um, the what's his name, the the guy that's going to get drafted. Why am I forgetting his name?
Nate, I
Yeah, I
meant.
meant Nate Ament is going to play his butt off, and he's just going to be too much for Virginia's defense, I think. This I had to. I had to pick someone that's a double-digit seed
I
to
know.
make it to the Sweet 16. I'm going with the Colonial Athletic Association. I'm going with Hofstra.
Hofstra.
I think without JT Toppin, Texas Tech is still going to feel, and they're still pretty good without him, but they're still going to feel like, oh, we drew a 13 seed. It's going to be all sunshine and rainbows.
Hmm.
And I think that's where it gets dangerous. This is the one team that I can see making it to the Sweet 16 that is below a 10 seed.
Mm.
Um, but they will eventually lose to Michigan. Michigan's the best team in this area of the bracket. They'll face Iowa State. I've seen a lot of people picking Iowa State. I think Michigan's front court is just too good against a great defense. But I think when it comes down to the grit and grind of the game, Michigan will eventually end up with the better players and the better moments and the stronger players as well. And I think they're better coached as well. And that is everything before the Final Four.
Right.
So I will pass it to you now,
All righty.
Caleb,
Let me
to
share.
show me your picks. I'm sure they're a bit different.
Yes. Now let me. Mhm. Are we good? Can we see?
We can see.
All
Let's
righty.
do it.
So let's start in the East, which I think is the toughest region this year, just based off the pedigree of coaches in there. Let's waste no time. Duke winning over that Siena. I have Ohio State, who's arguably one of the hottest teams in college basketball right now, but going against TCU Horned Frogs, that'll be a great first round matchup. I have the Johnnies coming out. I think they ride the momentum well that they built from the Big East tournament that they're able to secure a victory in. And then I have them going against Kansas. I have South Florida over Louisville. We talked about the absence of Mikael Brown, how that impacted the Louisville Cardinals, and I think guard play is super important in NCAA tournament. And we know how previous double-digit seeds, whether that's been McNeese State in past years, and their guard play, St. Peter's and their guard play that we saw. Those are two teams that come to mind immediately that had amazing or Princeton a couple years ago, amazing guard play. Were able to make some runs. So I see South Florida gain that victory. Michigan State over North Dakota State, UCLA, and UConn for my East region first round. And then for my second round, my round of 32, I have Duke over Ohio State. Kansas and St. John's, I feel like this is a toss up. A lot of people have Kansas depending on Darren Peterson playing, and then also St. John's if you just trust Rick Pitino a little bit more in his third year, like you were talking about. But I do think that considering how tumultuous and volatile Kansas season's been with Darren Peterson in, Darren Peterson out, that the consistency of St. John's and how they've been able to play better in second half of Big East play will ultimately lift them over the Kansas Jayhawks. And then I had Michigan State over South Florida. I think South Florida's run comes to an end very quickly here. We talked about guard play. Michigan State has arguably the best guard in the country with Fears, and then also Cohen Carr. Great one-two
Mhm.
punch right there. So I think that Michigan State will have the Bulls' dreams come to an end very quickly. And then this one. This one is a very common upset that people have, but I do not have it. I do think that UConn has not been playing best basketball going into March, which is a little scary for the Huskies, but I do have them over the UCLA Bruins. I still trust in Dan Hurley's coaching. I think that that roster is too talented to not make it to a Sweet 16. And early in the season, based off how they're playing, they're arguably the best team in college basketball. Their resume, they had beaten like four ranked teams early on in the year. So I thought that they were one of the best teams in college basketball. So I think if they play up to that potential, that they'll be able to handle the UCLA Bruins. And then my Sweet 16, I have Duke over St. John's. This is huge, though. If Pat Ngumba is not playing, that presents a lot of issues for that front court, especially with St. John's and Zuby Ejiofor. Because I have a feeling that Cam and Malik Brown will be in foul trouble early, but this is assuming they get to this point and assuming that Ngungma's not playing. But let's assume he's playing. I have Duke over St. John's, and then Michigan State. I have them losing to UConn because once again, I think UConn's team is super talented, and their big of Terrace Reed will give that front court of Michigan State some real issues. Even though I usually trust Izzo pretty highly when it comes to making it to Elite Eight, so I don't know, but I do have the UConn Huskies over Michigan State Spartans. Moving over to the West, Arizona, no questions to be asked there. I have Villanova over Utah State,
Mm.
actually. I think Villanova, Kelvin Willard, I trust him as a coach. He showed flashes at Maryland. And I do think he's able to do that with this Villanova squad. They have a couple players I trust in. Their lead guard, I'm blanking on his name now, but he's the freshman. He's played well in Big East play, so I do think that if we're sticking with the theme of guard play, that Villanova will be able to play a very good game against Utah State. Moving down, I got Wisconsin, arguably another team that's playing very well, one of the best teams in the country right now, beating High Point. But a lot of people have High Point. That's their 12 over 5. Not so much for me, but we'll talk about my 12 over 5 later. We got Arkansas over Hawaii. BYU over Texas. I do think that roster, when BYU plays well, we saw in the beginning of the year with their close games against ranked teams, especially against that UConn team, they're able to play really well. And Kevin Young, I think, will be able to draw up a good scheme against the Longhorns going into the 19th. I have Gonzaga over Kennesaw State, Miami over Missouri. I like what Jai Lucas has done in his first year with that Miami squad. He's a protege under Shire in that Duke tree. So I do think if you give him a long time to game plan, which he has had, considering their early exit from the ACC tournament, he'll be able to come up with a good game plan against Missouri Tigers and be able to, be one of those teams that makes a surprise run potentially. But we'll see. Purdue over Queens, no questions to be asked there. Big Ten champs, pretty easy to be stated. I have Arizona over Villanova. I think that game may be closer than what people think, even though Arizona has shown to be one of the best teams in the country from the start of the year to now. But I do think that they'll pull away in that game. I have Arkansas over Wisconsin. BYU over Gonzaga is my big upset here. I think that Gonzaga's conference play is a huge reason why obviously they get such high seeds every year. And they do consistently make it to Sweet 16. But I do think that BYU being in the Big 12, while they were around 500 at 1.9 and 9, I do think that they'll be able to pull it out because they're battered from Big 12 play. But I think a rested, healthy BYU team will be able to play Gonzaga well and beat them. And then I have Purdue over Miami. Then moving on, I got Arkansas with my major upset. I trust Darius Acuff. I like Brazil. I like what Richmond has done. I like the game plans that Calipari has instilled for those, you know, Razorbacks over there in Arkansas, able to pull out the SEC victory. So I think they have a lot of confidence going into this
Yeah.
tournament, and I think they'll be able to play extremely well against Arizona if they make it that far. And then I do have Purdue over BYU. Big Ten champs, ride that momentum. But I have Arkansas over Purdue, making it to the Final Four.
We have that
So
same game though. That's interesting.
I like it. I like what I've seen out of Arkansas recently. I think their squad is talented. DJ Wagner is coming off the bench. He had big minutes in the SEC championship game against Vanderbilt. He played
Yeah.
well. So if he's able to play well like that coming off the bench, you'll have another guard that's able to take the helm when Acuff's out or also when Acuff's in. So I like what I've seen out of the Razorbacks. And then I also, if I didn't say this before, I have Duke beating UConn to go to the Final Four. Moving on to the South. We have Florida over whoever is playing that game. I don't think any questions asked there. I have
Yeah.
Iowa, Bennett Sturts.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot out of you. I like what I'm seeing. I had them over Clemson. Clemson's had an up and down year. They've showed flashes of being a really good ACC team during tournament play, but then also I saw some defensive breakdowns in their
Yeah.
game after North Carolina that made me a little concerned on the guard front when guarding pick and roll action with Bennett Sturts. So that'll be interesting to see. Now, my 12 over 5 upset. You got to pick one. This is probably the wrong one to pick, but I had McNeese over Vanderbilt. I didn't like Akron over Texas Tech. I didn't like Northern Iowa. I liked McNeese though. They have some power five transfers on that team right now. Vanderbilt, I know they played well, and I know they're a well coached team, but I do wonder how the inexperience of tournament play for those players will play into this tournament. And McNeese still has some players that were on that squad from last year when Will Wade was still there. So I think it'll be interesting to see. I had Nebraska over Troy. And then the common pick a lot of people are having with Caleb Wilson being out, VCU over North Carolina. VCU played well in the A10 tournament, obviously. And
They
then
did.
North Carolina, They lost to Clemson in the ACC tournament, so I saw some things I didn't like out of them. And we talked about VCU's athleticism in the beginning of the year when we did conference picks. So I think North Carolina will have trouble defending that, especially with Caleb Wilson being out. Illinois over Penn. Penn, I'm not going to say lucky they made it, but TJ Power had to put up 44 points against Yale to bring them here. So I think that's no Ivy runs this year for
I agree.
anybody.
Yeah.
St. Mary's is going to beat Texas A&M in my opinion. Then I have Houston over Idaho. Next for Florida, I got them being Iowa. I think that'll be pretty straightforward game in my opinion. However, we'll see though. There's always a team that makes a run, obviously. Nebraska over McNeese State, and then I have Illinois being VCU, and then Houston being St. Mary's. So pretty chalky for this section of the bracket. And then going over here, we have Nebraska losing to Florida. I think Florida has shown flashes of being the best team in the country when they're talking about specifically SEC play. Defensively, their front court is really sound. And then when their guards play decent, they're a really good team.
Yeah.
And then I have Houston over Illinois. And then I have Florida beating Houston. Let's go to the Final Four. Now, final section, the Midwest region. I got Michigan over Howard, Brock Morgan. Your dreams come to an end here. I'm sorry. And then I have Georgia over St. Louis, Texas Tech, who arguably is still an elite team without JT Toppin, but I have them beating Akron. And then we have Alabama over Hofstra. I know the Holloway situation may be a distraction for many people, but I still think with how fast that Alabama plays, they live by it, they'll die by it. But I do think Hofstra will have a hard time keeping
Oh,
up.
they'll die by it.
They might, but I think Hofstra will have trouble keeping up with that pace in the tournament, especially in the first round. So I have the Crimson Tide rolling over Hofstra. So we got Tennessee. I have them beating whoever that may be, whether it's Miami, Ohio, or SMU. I think both teams will not be ready for the SEC play that Tennessee is accustomed to, the physicality of that. And then also, I think that Virginia will do the same thing to Wright State. Wright State, obviously, smaller conference team. So with ACC play, Virginia played really well and honestly above expectations this year with coaching of Ryan Odom, former UMBC coach, the same team that beat the Tony Bennett UVA team.
Hmm.
I think Odom's poised and ready for a big tournament run there. And then my big upset I have, well, maybe not big, but I have Santa Clara over Kentucky. Kentucky's been up and down this year. Santa Clara and Kentucky play at similar paces. So
Hmm.
I think it'll be interesting to see how both teams adjust. Obviously, that tends to give bigger conference teams, some a favor or like a slight edge just because of the opponents they've seen. But I do think Santa Clara will be able to give Kentucky some trouble here. I think Iowa State will handle Tennessee State without question. Even though former Duke player Nolan Smith is over there at Tennessee State, I do think that Iowa State will be able to handle them pretty easily. And then going back up to the top, I have Michigan over Georgia. Georgia in the beginning year, good SEC team, was ranked at one point, but I don't think they'll be able to handle Michigan. We got Texas Tech over Alabama. They'll die by that pace here. And then we have Virginia over Tennessee and Iowa State over Santa Clara. Now, I had trouble with this one, but I went with the Wolverines over Texas Tech. I do think that their front court without JT Toppin will have issues with the size of Michigan. You have Yaxel and Adam Murray, or however you say his last name.
Mara,
Mara, yeah. The 7 foot
he's
three,
so
big.
good.
He's so good. So I think Texas Tech will have some issues there. Even though I trust in Christian Anderson and his guard play for Texas Tech, I do think it'll be very, very hard for them to handle that Michigan front court without JT Toppin. And then I have Virginia over Iowa State. I think Iowa State showed moments where they could be susceptible to slower paced games in that Big 12 tournament.
Yep.
And I think that here, that's where they will fall. I think Virginia, Ryan Odom, well coached team. And I think they'll be able to beat Iowa State and TJ Otzenberger's team in this round right here. And then matchup between Virginia and Michigan. I'm chalky once again. I got the Michigan Wolverines, and I have them going to the Final Four, playing against Arkansas, and then I got them at Florida against Duke.
All right. Give me your final four. You haven't picked your champion yet.
I have not. So I have Michigan beating Arkansas, and then I have Duke beating Florida. So we have a rematch of you know, a previous championship game in the 90s, Duke, Michigan. So I have Duke right here taking the victory. No bias, of course. No bias, no bias.
Listen, these are the best two teams, I think. These are the most, to me, these are the best coached. Dusty May and John Shire are incredible coaches. They have absolutely created like machines, absolute machines. But I think that um those are those are good picks. I think
What's your
it's
Final Four
I
looking like?
here's the thing, man. It doesn't matter who's the best team.
It
This is
doesn't.
March,
It just matters who's the best team that day. That's
and the
it.
best team that day is the Do. I'm doing the Do.
The do.
And I think it's a rematch. I have a rematch of the Big Ten championship. I think there are some things that Matt Painter has not broken out, some things that he can do
Mm.
with manipulation of the offense, with getting a wide open shot. Purdue did not take a bad shot in the game. I kind of had a moment in the second half. I was like, have they had a boneheaded play? The answer was no.
Mm.
Purdue has three 4-year senior stars,
It's crazy.
and they have been through the lowest of lows as a team, falling to a 16, FDU, Farley
FDU.
Dickinson.
Yes, Fairleigh
But
Dickinson.
they have so much more offensive capability without Zach Edey. Yes, I said it. They are better without him. They have more options. They have more developed players. They have
Hmm.
shooters, and they can get in the paint. Oscar Clough, man, look out for Oscar Clough, man. He's
Oscar.
for real. And then I have Houston taking down Duke. I think that the
You think
defense will
the same
finally
thing
get,
happens as last year?
yep, the same thing will happen with Caleb Foster. I think the team isn't as good as the flag team.
That's
And
fair.
without Caleb Foster, it's going to be tough.
It
I
will.
do think Cam Boozer is a more pro-ready player than Flag was. I think that he is a better leader and is more capable of being the guy to, you know, lead his team in the moments that matter most. But I don't think that they'll get past this Houston team this time. Um, and then I have Purdue winning against Houston. I
Mm.
that's This was a tough one. I spent the most time on this championship pick. Purdue was my first pick, my gut reaction, and then I sort of flipped, and now I'm back with Purdue because I think that despite Houston's incredible defense and Kingston Fleming's running that offense,
Yep.
I think that Braden Smith in the last game of his college career is going to put an otherworldly amount on the line in
Mm.
terms of his body and just everything has led to this moment for him.
Right.
And I think that this is the time when they come out and they finally do it. And yeah, I have your teams both in the Final Four, but I have them falling. It's really a coin flip at this point, and this is where it really gets hard. The Final Four is
It is
impossible.
tough. It is tough. It's impossible. It's even impossible. Elite Eight is always tough too.
Yeah,
Best teams in the country, right? I'm interested to hear from you though. When you look back at that Houston game, can you go back to your Elite Eight, please? Houston is playing. You have Illinois,
yeah. Then Vandy.
or Vandy was your Elite Eight game.
I almost picked Iowa to upset Florida, but I wasn't going to be that crazy. I already have Hofstra in the Sweet
I
16,
know
so
it's tough. I
yeah.
think I think the Illinois game will be interesting. I know you talked about it being a home game for Houston, but Illinois has played well this year. They played well against ranked teams. There's only game that I think they really struggled was early in the season against UConn when they lost by double digits.
Yeah.
But I think against other ranked teams, they've played well. They have a win against Texas Tech, obviously. You see that double-digit victory that they had against Tennessee right there. And Illinois plays an efficient brand of basketball. They're on the slower side of things, not as slow as Houston, but
Yeah.
considering the pace that they do play at, they're a pretty efficient ball club. So that'll be a good game. I'm
Yeah.
interested in that game. I think that's the biggest game to watch out for if we make it that far.
And I would
But
really
then,
have the
oh
winner
yeah,
of this game going to the championship. I think it
yeah.
sucks that they have to play each other this early. I mean, this is a Sweet 16 matchup, right? So you
And
can only
it's
pick one.
interesting because I thought Illinois was a two. In my mind, pre Big Ten tournament, I had Illinois as a two.
Yeah.
So some may argue they got slided there, but it's tough when you have
I'll
the
take them
two.
over Iowa State, honestly.
Yeah, Iowa State, UConn, and then the other two twos being who am I forgetting?
You got Houston and you got Purdue.
Houston and then Purdue.
Yeah.
So it's tough when those four teams are.
I kind of just went with the home court advantage and establishment. Like
Yeah.
the Kelvin Sampson establishment in this part of the bracket has been really strong, and the fact that they're playing across the street from campus, I mean, it's it's just a I won't say an unfair advantage, but it is a very strong advantage for a team that is drawing the best three seed for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um, on your side, I'll ask you one last question.
yes.
What is Duke losing without Caleb Foster? Because we haven't seen that much. We've seen
Right.
them still playing really well, but what if they're tied with a minute left?
That's fair. Let me pull up my bracket and show you right now where I have them. I think this right here becomes a little tricky against St. John's. That that game
And even
becomes
if
a
it's
little
Kansas,
tricky. And even if it's Kansas, we beat Kansas earlier in the year without Darren Peterson, but it'll be interesting to see how they play with him. Possibly, or even against the Johnnies. I think that would be a tough game. And don't sleep on Michigan State either. If Michigan State finds a way
yep,
to get to this Elite Eight right here, and same with Duke, it will be the third time in my lifetime that I've seen Duke and Michigan State play an Elite Eight, and it'll be the third time that they lose
yeah,
if they do lose against them. But I could see that happening without Foster. Foster's a big hit just in terms of not only guard play, but just leadership, obviously. And so it'll be interesting to see. He's shooting 40% from the three as well. So that's another 3-point shooter that's down. So teams can game plan a little easier with Foster being out, obviously, as opposed to him being in the game and having another shooter on the floor. So I do think St. John's and that Big East defense that they've been playing the last couple of weeks will come into play, especially against Duke without Foster and potentially without Ngungba. I know they're kind of evaluating him on a day-to-day basis, but without him, they'll be super tough.
I think Ejiofor is a little bit overrated as a defender. Great scorer, great scorer. But if you've got a guy like Cam Boozer that can do basically everything offensively, I'm not going to say he's going to play with his food, but I think Cam Boozer is going to hit like six threes in that game.
It's possible. But I do think the big thing with Cam as well is that Cam, I want to say he's a bad defender, but watching Duke a lot this year, I've seen him he frequently is out of position, and I don't
Yeah,
think that's necessarily because of like
he can
intangibles
get
on the
pushed around
defensive
a little
end.
bit.
I
Yeah,
think he gets pushed around a lot because he's a little bit undersized just
yeah,
for the position that he plays. And then also it seems that is almost not out of shape, but a lot of transition buckets I've seen with players taking advantage of being able to get down the floor quicker, and
hmm
then Cam being on kind of asking for help and not being able to catch up with the bigs or guards. And St. John's does play a faster brand of basketball than Duke, so
yeah.
that could lead to issues.
Um, I agree.